going to start our walk around on our brand new 850K Dozer on the left hand side here. During the walk around, we're going to talk about some of the new and exciting features that we have on the K Series machine, as well as some of the features that we've carried forward from the J Series. So first up is the purpose-built mainframes. We continue to have purpose-built mainframes depending on the configuration of the machine that you purchase, whether it's a OSD, an outside dozer, a PAT, a power angle tilt dozer. All the advantages and the balance enhancements that we have with each dozer or each configuration is moved forward from the J Series. So during the J Series, we talked about the near vertical lift cylinders on the outside dozer, which increases ground pressure. So during production or heavy cuts, you actually have better ground pressure to increase production. On the PAT machines, we have nearly horizontal lift cylinders, which are actually faster response times, and so it's improved grading and of the PAT machines. So that's one of the carryovers. That's the first carryover that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to climb up on the machine, and we're going to talk about some of the new features of the K Series. As I climb down, we're going to talk about our new cooling. The cooling is called V-Cool for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very cool system, and the real reason we call it V-Cool is because it's shaped as in a V pattern. Now, a couple of things I want to point out before we open this up. On the J Series machine, you had to unbolt a couple of cap screws here just to swing the grill out so you had access to the hydraulically driven fan. In order to have access to the front of the coolers on the J Series, you still had to remove that fan. We no longer have to do that with this tilt-out grill. We have complete access to the hydraulic fan, the coolers. So a couple of things about the hydraulic fan. We still retain the benefits of our cool-on-demand hydraulically driven fan. It only runs when it needs to run, saves your customers fuel. It only runs when it needs to run. It keeps the outside noise of the dozer down, as well as some of the inside noise of the dozer. We do have a standard reversing fan with 4 different settings that we can set, depending on your application, depending on how much debris you're working in. So it'll actually purge the dirt from the coolers, and it's part of our debris management system. So if you want to take a look in here, this is the real reason why we call it V-Cool, is because it's shaped in a V. So with the cooling demands, the increased cooling demands of our IT4 engines, we needed to increase the cooling package on this machine. So either we had the option of going up or making the front of the machine wider. We chose to put it in this V pattern, so we maintain the same sight lines that we had on our J Series, and we increased the cooling capabilities of this machine. So with that, that's our V-Cool system. I'm going to move back to the right-hand side of the engine compartment and talk about a few of the components in there. The first thing that's new on the left-hand side of our engine compartment here is we did have an optional door system on the J Series machine. With the introduction of the IT4 machine, we do have a couple of components in there that we need access to. So we standardized the left-hand door on our K Series 850K Series machine. So let's open it up and take a look inside. First off, I'm going to point out some of the major components under the hood here. We have the diesel particulate filter here, the diesel oxidation catalyst. We have the fuel dosing, which is downstream. That's how we increase the temperature to meet our IT4 emissions. And I want to show you the back side of the coolers in our V-cooling. The first thing I want to point out is we have a brand new plenum in our between our engine compartment and our cooling compartment. So we completely separate the engine compartment between the cooling compartment. So we're drawing fresh, cool air across these 3mm screens, which is our first line of defense in debris management. We're no longer drawing preheated air across the coolers, keeping the machine cooler and running a lot more efficient. If you look in there, you can see that we have extremely good access to all sides of the coolers from the front and the back. So let's move to the back of the machine. Let me close these doors here. Before I open up this left-hand service door on the cab, I want to talk about our new viscous cab mounts that we have on the K-Series. Basically, they're gel-filled cab mounts or fluid-filled cab mounts. They completely isolate the cab from the vibration and the rough ride of the machine. So the operator is extremely comfortable, and everybody knows that a comfortable operator is more productive, and it also quiets the cab down a fair amount compared to the mounts that we had before on the J-Series. So when I talk about the tilting procedure, there's a couple of things that have changed on that. We still have our HIC valve, our hydraulic integrated control circuit. Here's the jack for the tilting of the cab. That's basically in the same spot. We have the hydrostatic filter right here. We have the hydrostatic tank sight gauge here. We still have the clean out of the hydrostatic tank here. We do have a new option that I want to talk about, and that's this severe duty water fuel separator, heated water fuel separator at that. This is 400 milliliters, so for extreme temperature applications, and you need to separate some bad fuel, we do have this as an option. Windshield solvents here. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that the tilting procedure on this cab has changed. The tilting procedure, just like our J-Series, is on this decal right on the inside here. There's a couple more bolts that you have to move, and you have to move the flag pin in the back when you do the tilting, before you do the tilting. If you don't put these flag pins in, you will actually do some damage to the viscous cab mounts in the back when you're lifting it up. So it's important for you guys to note that you do want to read this and make sure that you're aware of the new tilting procedure. With that, I'm going to shut this up, and I'm going to walk to the back of the machine over here. Another carryover from the J-Series is our factory installed rippers. We also have a couple of options for counterweights. So when you're working in those extremely aggressive environments or hard dirt environments and you need a ripper or you need some extra counterweights, you can get that factory installed, making it a little bit easier for the dealerships to get these options on. So I'm going to walk up here to the right-hand side of the machine and talk a little bit about tracks and track frames. A carryover from the J-Series, we still retained all of the options for track frames, track widths, and SC2 coated bushings, extended life bushings. That's all a carryover from the J-Series machines. So everything that we had on the J-Series, you can get on the K-Series. So let me open up this right-hand door. We got a couple of new items in here that I'd like to point out. We still have our hydraulic filter here, which is the same part number as the hydrostatic filter. We have the hydraulic sight gauge. We have the hydraulic tank clean out. And it's important to note that we still are the only machine in this the only machine in this size that has a hydrostatic drive system, as well as completely separated hydraulic and hydrostatic systems. The new 24-volt electrical load center that we have here, we did this for serviceability. Before, the electrical load center was behind the cab, and you needed to undo a couple of cap screws in order to access that electrical load center. We no longer have to do that. In fact, the fuses are located right out here at ground level, so you don't need to climb up on the machine to do anything. A couple of things we got from our CAG group is we pulled these batteries, these two 12-volt batteries, which is a 24-volt system in series. We pulled this forward, so it's a little bit easier to service the batteries now. Let me close this up, and I'll point out some of the new features on the right-hand side of the engine compartment. Now, this is a new engine that we have inside this engine compartment here. We went from a 9-liter engine to a 6.8-liter IT4 engine, but we did increase the horsepower from 185 horsepower up to 205 horsepower. So let me point out some of the daily service items here. This is where you check your oil. We do have a new heavy-duty fuel water separator, or primary fuel filter, which is standard on all of our machines. We do have the optional one that I talked about on the left-hand side, but this is standard. It's about double in size what we had for a fuel water separator on the J-Series machine. We have the secondary filter, which is down here, along with the oil filter. Now, I know you can't see that, but we still have the removable door on the bottom guard, so you do have access when you're draining the oil. You don't have to remove that entire bottom guard. You do have access to get up in there to service the machine. A couple of other new items that we have here. We have a light. You know, we had a light in some of our other equipment that we manufacture. And it makes sense, you know, because a lot of our customers are working 24 hours a day. You know, so there's early morning shifts and there's late night shifts. So it's just easier for the customer to service the machine and do the daily maintenance of the machine if he can see. We have the coolant tank here. We have the back side of the V coolers. One of the other new things that we have here is we have this new aspirated air cleaning system. For those of you not familiar with aspirated air filter system, on the J-Series, we had a dust unloading valve here. Now we have a hose, this 90-degree elbow, and a hose, which goes up to the exhaust stack on the downstream side of the exhaust. It actually pulls a vacuum on our air filter system. So before any of the heavy debris gets a chance to get to the air filter, it is drawn through that tube and expelled out through the exhaust system. So it helps to increase the life of your air filters quite a bit. And in some cases, this one has a rotary pre-filter on it. In some cases, you may not need to purchase that rotary pre-filter. So a couple of the optional pieces of equipment that we have over here is we do have optional fluid sampling ports. We do have the optional quick fluid evac system, and of course they're all color coded, so there's no possible chance of you know, anybody messing up the different color, the different products. So with that, this concludes my portion of the walk around. Feel free to write in any questions, and Dan Drescher and I will be answering them for you.